All right, we are recording for our product editing demo for Photography 1.2. So I'm just going to go to these photos here. So on earlier, when I was at school, I shot some photos with this setup. So I used a t-shirt and a box, just like I showed yesterday in the lighting demo. I use this LED panel, but this light could be any light. That could be a flashlight. It could be, a lamp. It could be any sort of light. This could also be window light. If I put my window kind of to the side of my setup, and then, this is for my black reduction. So I put it as close as I could to my product, or it could be my silver or white fill on the shadow side. So whatever side your light's on, you're gonna either fill in the shadow side or add shadow to the shadow side. So then, so you can kind of see the difference. This is my photo straight from the camera. This is my photo where I filled in the left. This is my photo where I increased the shadow side with my black reduction. And then this was on a white shirt. So again, straight out of the camera, this is with my white fill. So you can see how I filled in that shadow side. And then this is where I increased the shadow using that black reduction. You can kind of see the difference between the two. So I was going to edit this one in Camera Raw. So again, Camera Raw is very similar to Photoshop Express on the smartphone, where you got all those different adjustments. One thing I would consider, kind of the main thing I see with product photography is there's like a bunch of extra room around the product, or maybe they shot a vertical product like horizontally and there's all this like room on the sides. So I would definitely consider cropping your photo and then make sure your product is centered in the frame. So that way it's not like a ton of dead room around it and it's centered. It's not like to the side or something, right? So using the crop tool, there's a crop tool in Photoshop Express, and you just kind of want to center it so then it's kind of like even spacing around it. Maybe you need to crop out some extra of the background, right? And so that's looking pretty centered. Oh, no, let's go a little this way. There we go. Just gonna bring this up a little bit. There we go. And then double click. If it's crooked, there is a straightening tool where you can adjust the angle and you can rotate it as well. So that way, if it was like on an angle, you could fix that. There is a straightening tool in Photoshop Express as well with the crop tool. So that's a good one. One thing to consider, depending on how you shot it, you might have some color temperature issues. If you use like a lamp or a flashlight with a certain color temperature light. So you might need to fix the temperature so you can make it warmer or cooler. This one I'm going to add a little bit of cool. And then this one has kind of a magenta tint, sorry. So you can increase magenta or add green. So I'm just going to add a little green and a little cool blue, and then that looks a lot better. So this is before and after. You can see it had kind of like a warm pink tint. So I'm just kind of correcting that out with my color temperature sliders. Again, I'll show you where that's at in Photoshop Express. Depending on how you shot it, you might need to adjust your exposure. So again, think about your global adjustments. Make sure your product looks good, right? You want to make sure the product is in the right exposure. You might want to play with your shadows. You could increase the shadow on your black reduction or up the shadow on your fills, your white or silver fills. Otherwise, if it shows up pretty well because you lit it well, that's cool too. I usually add a little texture and maybe a little clarity just so the product looks really good. That might add stuff to your background, so you might need to fix that later. And then are your colors good? Vibrant saturation. So these are kind of the main sliders I would think about when adjusting your product photos. And then we can get into cleaning up the product or the background. So in Photoshop Express and Camera Raw, we have a spot healing tool here. You can put on heal mode or clone mode. And so if you zoom in, so if you're on a computer, press Control or Command plus, so then you can start clicking around and it's gonna start guessing on trying to remove some of these, spots. So I got quite a bit of dust. This is a pretty old camera. It's been around for a very long time. The cool thing about the one in Camera Raw is you can actually move around where it heals from, and then you kind of help it out guess right. And so I can start clicking, clicking, and then just kind of help it out. There we go. So then I'll kind of spend my time cleaning up my product, making sure I don't have any dust or scratches. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, you could really spend your time cleaning your products, wiping them down with like a microfiber cloth, or if you have like a hair dryer or fan, something to blow off any dust. So the cleaner you get it before you shoot it, the less you have to retouch. So it's kind of something to think about when you're shooting your products. So that's looking good. I'm just going to save it out. And then I was going to show Photoshop Express and then Photoshop Fix on the smartphone, which probably most of you guys will be using that. So pop it up and then open up the photo. So always remember when you're saving stuff, whether it's in Photopea or Photoshop, make sure you're saving them out as JPEGs. So you can upload them to your Flickr or to your Google Doc or Google Slides. Sorry, it's taking a bit. All right, I'm just gonna go save as. Let's call this thing V2 or copy. There we go. And then make sure it's JPEG and then hit OK on the quality. So for, just gonna close these down. Here we go. So for using Photoshop Express, so I sent one of those white photos to my phone. So in Photoshop Express, you have the same adjustment sliders. Just click on, adjustments here, and then you got your exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. So if you had a white background and you wanted to kind of increase the whites of the background, you could go to the whites tab, hit that, and then increase it. So just drag it up, and basically it'll make anything white more white. So, and then vice versa, if you had black background, you could drag the blacks down, same as in Camera Raw 2, there's a white and black slider. So, but it does bring every white up and every black down. So in Photoshop Fix, you have a little bit more control. That's what I was going to show. I'd probably recommend that, but you could do some global adjustments. You got your temperature slider. So again, if you had like a color cast on your photos, you could add some cooler or warmer color temperature to get it neutral. And then you have a tint slider. So the tint adds magenta or adds green, depending on, and you just think opposites. If you have a magenta tint, you add green. If you had a green tint, you add magenta, and then neutralizes it. Vibrance and saturation. So the clarity is one, you could increase the clarity to make the product good, or you could decrease the clarity to make the background smoother. I'll be showing a better option in Photoshop Fix. And so there is a sharpen one. So maybe you didn't shoot it super clear. You could add some sharpening as an adjustment. And then you do have the crop tool at the bottom, the crop tool. And then there is an option to rotate. So if you hit rotate, you can basically rotate it if it was crooked. So if you drag this, come on, dude, you can rotate it, right? And then just go back here, and then you can crop it. So then I would just, take some time centering it up and then cropping the photo. And then once you want to save it out, again, just use that upper button here. It looks like a box with an arrow. And then hit save to camera roll, and we'll save that photo to your phone. So what I did want to share is Photoshop Fix is probably the one I would use for this, for retouching products. It looks like that, Photoshop Fix, F-I-X. So I'm just gonna, here we go. I'm just gonna open the photo up into the program. Okay. So again, with Photoshop Fix, there is a crop tool, so you could crop it. There are adjustments, not as many as Photoshop Express, but some. And then we have a liquify tool if you wanted to shape stuff. The healing brush, so that's the one I would use to clean up my product. So again, when you zoom in using 2 fingers, you can zoom in, and then you can, if you want to adjust the size of the brush, just click this little brush icon on the side. There you go. And then if you pull up or down, oh, sorry, that's wrong. Just gonna undo that. Let's go to size. And so yeah, if you push on size, you can go up or down. And then you can also adjust the hardness. So if you want a soft edge or a hard edge on your brushes settings for your healing. And then you can just, start tapping off the little dots. This is hard to do while I'm looking at the camera, but you can kind of see how it's working. Kind of lights up red and then gets rid of stuff. So then I kind of take some time healing. If you zoom in and out with 2 fingers, that's how you can move around. So that's kind of the one I would use. And then for my background, there's 2 options you can use. Let's get that. So one is the smooth option here. And so that one, you basically can paint. You can kind of see here. Let's get the exposure. Wherever I paint with red, we'll start kind of softening. And so I can kind of go over the background and around my product. This is, again, hard to do holding it to the camera. But you get the idea. And I actually kind of soften things up. Once you're done, just hit the little check to commit it. And then if I'm on a white background, what I can do, you can actually see, I can still see the folds on my background. What I can do is go to light, and there is a lighten or darken option. And so if I'm on the light mode, wherever I paint, it kind of lights up green wherever I paint. Sorry, it's not like the best exposure. But basically all I'm doing is lightening up the whites where I want it to go. So instead of doing it to the whole photo, I can kind of control where it goes, and it'll lighten up, around my product. So then I have less of those kind of wrinkles showing up. It's still some, but it's definitely improved. And then just, again, hit the little check in the corner to commit that. And then there is a defocus. So at the bottom, you keep going. There's this, oh, come on, dude. There we go. Defocus option right here. That'll blur stuff. So wherever I paint will basically not only soften, but it'll kind of put it out of focus. And so you can just paint around your product. So basically I'm just like trying to smooth out and defocus all the folds, make it more pure white, to make it look really nice. And so then you could, at the top, there's that little output box. Press that, and then save to camera roll, and I'll save it to your camera roll. So you can see, let's see if I can show before and after. Might be hard to see because of the exposure. So, actually, you know what? I'm just going to send it to the computer. Let's do that. Just drive it. I know. No. Dog's barking. All right, I'm just going to drag these to the desktop. So this was, let's see if I can do this in order. This is the before and after. I kind of messed up with the healing brush here because I was trying to do it quick. But you kind of see how I brightened up the background. I did remove some spots, and then I basically like put a lot of the background out of focus and lightened it. So it worked pretty well for a smartphone, doing it pretty quick as I was trying to hold it and talk to the class at the same time. So that's kind of the ways I would kind of approach it. If you were using Photoshop, I can show that real quick. It's a little more advanced, but I can just show you real quick. So the cool thing with Photoshop is you have, and the same as Photopea, so if you're using photopea.com, same thing. Obviously, you got your crop tools. You can crop it any way you want, dragging from the edges. And then let's kind of center this guy up. That's good. That's pretty good. So what you could do is in your adjustment layers, if you click down here, there's a selective color option. You can click on that. This is the same as photopea.com. And so under colors, you just go down to your whites. And then you're basically just gonna, where it says black here, you're gonna drag it to the left to brighten the whites. If I drag it to the right, it'll darken my whites, which looks really weird. So if I drag it to the left, because this is on a layer mask and I don't want it to just the whites on my product, just on the background, I just need a brush and I'm just gonna paint it with black. So switch it to black or click on it and make sure it's black. And then I can just paint with my brush, on the product. So then it doesn't make the product white. Instead of making the whole photo white, it's just gonna make the background. So anywhere I leave white will go white, and anywhere I leave black or paint with black won't show that adjustment. So if I want to double the strength, all I need to do is press Command or Control J, and then I'll basically double it up. So now I have a pretty pure white background, around my product. And so then I'll just kind of paint off any areas that I didn't want it to go to with black. Same with, if I had a black background, I would just go to a selective color and then click here. And then under the black channel, I would just drag the blacks all the way to the right to basically increase the blacks. And then I would just paint off, the areas on the product where I didn't want it to darken. So selective colors in Photo P as well. So again, that's good options if you're editing with Photoshop or Photo P. And then you have also the healing brush tools. You get a lot more control. It's also a lot more accurate in Photoshop and Photo P than on the smartphone because it's a higher quality application. So again, let's go to my background layer. Actually, I'm just going to flatten my layers so it saves them together. Layer flatten image, same as Photo P. I'm just going to copy my layer, so layer duplicate layer, hit OK. And then I can use the spot healing brush to start removing the dust. And you'll notice in Photoshop, especially, it's a lot more accurate than the app. But obviously some of you don't have it, so use the spot healing brush. I'm just going to go layer flatten image to combine those layers together, and then save it out. So in just I don't know what minute, I was able to do quite a bit. And it's just kind of a nice way to make your background. So this is the before and after. I cropped it, got rid of a lot of the dust on the lens, and then made the background more pure white. So looks pretty good. Cool. All right, I'm gonna stop recording, and then I'll